Welcome to Mindscapes and Memoirs. Real stories, real people, real life. Dive into conversations that heal, inspire, and help us grow.
Eric, I would love to understand a little bit about your journey. You've gone through a lot. You grew up on a third generation dairy farm, you went to carpentry, and then you pivoted. I'm so interested to understand how that all came together and how it brought you to where you are today.
It's interesting. When people ask me my story, I usually say that I feel like energy medicine and this practice found me. I think kind of growing up and through my 20s and my 30s, I always had this feeling like I was searching for something and I was really scared of not finding it. So I was always in this mode of trying new things and always really searching. And it was just this really interesting feeling in my body that I couldn't really understand. And then when I got introduced to energy medicine work, it faded. And I just realized that this was the thing that I was looking for. And that meant a lot to me. That I think as I kind of went through some of the training, I started to realize that this is something that was looking for me, and that I was meant to kind of be here in this lifetime doing this kind of work, and it was the thing that I was searching for. So it means a lot to find this practice or have it find me, and to be in this place of practicing and providing it to people. So it's been a real interesting experience, I think, reacquainting myself with it in this lifetime, I would say.
Reacquainting yourself. I like
Yeah.
that. Within the introduction you shared with me, you overcame this deep rooted shame and anxiety and trauma. And I'm so interested in hearing from you what those traumas, what that shame and anxiety, where it stemmed from, and what your story was that led you to really looking into healing yourself.
I would say that I didn't really have an understanding of what I was going through until I really started to heal some of my issues. I remember even being in class the first time, and we sort of learned one of our first techniques, and our teacher said, so just pick an issue and work on it. And I was like, I don't even know what my issues are. Like, things are just kind of normal. I'm married. I've got, the same problems as everybody else. I don't really know what my issues are. So that was a bit of a wake up call. And then now realizing how deep I was into some of these experiences of, I think regret was probably the biggest one. Realizing now that I had this inner was really not able to stay quiet. There was moments, I think, going through my life of being scared of being with myself, because when things got too quiet, this voice would start to rear its head, and I just couldn't get it too quiet. And it didn't really have anything good to say about my experiences and my past. And it was really hard to be with myself a lot of times. I think that that's where some tendencies to lean towards some addictions came in. I think, this fear of being with myself, I needed something that would instantly put me in a different mindset, then instantly kind of change my emotions to this happy place, because being sober and alone was the scariest place, to be honest. So I think waking up to that experience and realizing that that's what was going on for me was a big experience. I think growing up, I would say that things were quite intense emotionally for me. I have a lot of guy friends that I think have the same type of heart as me, and connection feels like a supercharge. Somebody saying something good about you, somebody wanting to be your friend, it just amplifies so much in your body, and it just feels like this huge expression that just kind of overtakes your body and your emotions and your actions. I spent a lot of my younger years being too intense. And I think that really repelled a lot of people out of my life, and it made it really hard to form good connections, making friends, having relationships, because as soon as things got good, it was just super intense. So yeah, I think my emotional body was a little bit out of whack through those experiences. And I remember being in groups and people would just be looking at me with wide eyes. And I'd be like, what are you looking at? Like, what do you see that I can't see? And this experience of not being able to see myself in my own life was it was a really interesting experience to go through, and always asking myself, like, what's wrong with me? And so going through some of the training that I went through, it took quite a few years, even going through the training, to really get to the point where I could see what was going on. And I remember sitting on the front lawn of my friend's place, and we were just talking, and it was after a fairly interesting healing experience session that I had gone through. And so we were just sitting and chatting, and I just said to her, I said, I need to take a moment because I can feel myself coming out of a traumatized state. And it was like this, it was like I was splitting, and I could all of a sudden see who I was. It was like I was becoming this different personality almost, and I could separate myself from who I was and what I was now. And I could actually look back at what it was and see it so clear. It was what I would describe as coming out of a traumatized state.
I grew up bullied in school, didn't really fit in, knew that there was something very different about me, and I wasn't sure at the time what it was. I just knew that people didn't like me. I was trying to be exactly what people wanted me to be, and it still didn't work. And when you said you were intense, that struck a chord with me because I came across, I believe, in the same way, just very, very intense. I felt everything at 100% when other people maybe felt it at 50, right? And so strong, strong feelings, strong emotions. I want to attach to you. I want to spend every waking moment with you. I would love to understand what did intensity look like for you?
I think that intensity was almost something that I started to get addicted to. And it was like the intense emotions felt like that was the zest of life. And so I was searching for things that were more exciting and more intense relationships. And it felt really good to go after those things, but it wasn't normal. And so it really, I could feel it in my heart, I think is where it kind of started. And so I think it's kind of like when you first start dating somebody and you kind of get into this, I call it a love bomb. So you kind of go through this experience, and it's like the two magnets are coming together. So now instead of having your heart as one magnet, you have two coming together, and it's just twice as good. But it was like everything was meeting somebody new that wanted to get to know you was just boom, huge, right? It's like, let's be best friends. Well, that's a little crazy. We just met each other, but it's nice to meet you. So just everything was amplified, and it just felt normal. And I was like, isn't this the same for everybody?
And
Doesn't
it
everybody?
wasn't.
And it wasn't at all. And you just, it's so hard to see outside of that experience when you're in it. So growing up on a family farm, so I had quite a bit of family around. My grandfather was in the yard. We had uncles and cousins in the yard. I had a brother, older brother and sister. My parents were there and together. I had lots of people around me, but I I want to say that the generation of our parents, that things were harder. I think there was a lot of just being really close to the line for a lot of parents at that time. So I think things were a little bit stressful. I think running a dairy farm is a little stressful at times. I have this belief that you kind of decide what you're going to go through before you get here. Right. And so the path is just a story. I always say to people, can you go get me a piece of your past? And it's like, well, no, it's not here. And it's like, yes, just an idea. It's just the story that creates who you think you are. And it's just the experience. And so I think I can see some generational experiences kind of coming through my family. My dad's grandfather lost his wife. And when that happened, he just kind of picked up and left and left. So my grandfather and aunts and uncles, their father just left. And there was just this experience of abandonment. And so I can see that being passed down in our family, not on purpose. So I can feel myself going through some abandonment, not physically and not maliciously, not intentionally. But when you go through an experience, it's all you know. And that's the only experience you really know how to pass down. I can see generational trauma in my experience as well, shaping who I am. And, I think that was a bit of my experience going through school and even after school, just being alone. Abandonment sounds like a really bad word, but it's almost just being like being alone. And that felt like the safe place for me. Again, being around other people I was too intense. It was almost too much to be around other people. So I could see myself even sabotaging experiences so that people wouldn't be around me because being alone was the safe place.
Yeah.
Right.
I resonate with that, by the way, a lot. That was
Yeah.
exactly how I felt growing up.
Mm-hmm. So I think even kind of coming out of this traumatized state, and I would say that I'm almost a completely different personality than what I was almost 4 years ago. I remember starting to make friends and almost having the experience of feeling like too many people are texting me and want my attention and want to be around me. And I was like, I need to sabotage some of these relationships because this is too intense. Like, this is too much. This is something I'm not used to. And had to be like, no, this is part of the process. You got to get good at this. If you want something different, you got to accept the change and the newness. That was a pretty interesting experience to go through.
So when people were reaching out to you, and I'm asking you because I've experienced this myself, too many people reaching out and I shut down. I just ghost. I stop. I will not respond. And I know that that's terrible and I shouldn't do that. But for me, it's like something's blocking my ability to respond. I want to respond. I like the people, right? There's nothing wrong with them. It's just the fact that it's almost overwhelming to think of responding. And I can even say this when it comes to my grandmother, right? I love my grandmother to the ends of the earth. But the second that she writes me and says, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while, it's like it's triggering me to not want to respond. And it's like, well, wait, no, now I don't want to respond. I was just thinking about you, was just about to text you, was just about to call. No, I can't. I've got to wait until this moment passes, and then I'll get back to you like in a couple of days, a couple of weeks. But I would love to hear from you, like, what is it for you? Like, and how did you get over that? And how do you deal with it differently?
I think kind of going through this experience of meeting new people, I've had to realize the different types of relationships that there are. And some people have a tendency to manipulate, use shame, use blame. It's like, well, I haven't heard from you in a while. And it's like, well, I don't really need to be shamed right now.
Yes.
It's not really a healthy connection. And now you're forcing me to connect with you because you need something from me. And so this isn't a reciprocal relationship.
Yes.
This is me now giving, and now I feel like I have to do this. And if I don't, then I'm going to feel bad about myself. So that's not a healthy relationship. Right. And so I think I've kind of woken up to narcissistic behavior in the last little bit. I think that's really rung my bell.
Is there a lot of that right now?
In my experience, it's been around me quite a bit. I think that I've gravitated towards that type of individual because I think in the mechanism of narcissism, the first thing they do is love bomb. And so there's this experience in the beginning that's just like amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, everything's great. I want to be around you. And they're just focused on you and they just want to know more. And you just want to tell them more. And you give them all of everything that you got. And you're just like opening your heart
Without knowing that you're
can.
being manipulated.
Off the beginning, right? And so you're just opening wide open and you're just letting somebody walk right into you and just be like, yeah, take a look. Like you're thanking me, you're appreciating everything I've got here. And then once they're in, then it's this pulling of connection. Now they take it away and then they start to manipulate, or so then it starts to be this control mechanism. And so I've realized how to guard my heart. And really just in some of the sessions that I've done for myself, just kind of put this nice little fence around it. The nice little gate, the pretty little lock that only I get to decide who comes in here.
Yeah.
And it's not this wide open field where anybody can come. It'd be great to have somebody here, whoever wants to reap the benefit of my heart, come on in. It's it's been a bit of a different situation for a while. So I think connection to people, you have to find the people with their heart in the right place. Some
How do
people
you
want to,
find that? That's so interesting that you say that, but how do you find that and how do you know? Because I'm sure that there's so many people who are watching and listening and they're thinking, yeah, well, I met this person and they seemed great and then suddenly they weren't. So how do you know? And I guess how do you test? And I hate saying that because no one wants to test another human being, right? It's not, we wouldn't want to be tested ourselves, but how do you check to see if the person that you're dealing with is safe enough to actually expose yourself to?
I think the first thing to kind of realize is where you're at. What do you need from connection with other people? I like to say, and I learned this in my schooling, that a lot of the times we're in relationship because our wounds are compatible, not our love. And so you get into relationship. Sometimes you get into relationship with people and it's, I'll do this for you and you do this for me. And so now you're in this codependency of like, you tell me how good I am because I can't tell myself that. And I'll do this thing for you when you're sad and give you confidence and love each other. And then after a while, you start to resent the person where it's just like, I don't want to have to keep doing this thing for you that can't you do it for yourself already? And then you start to resent them that you have to keep doing this. And the reason why you got together is now the reason you want to get apart. So I think in relationship, you have to be very steady with yourself. And you have to be really clear on, why do I want to be in relationship with somebody? And what are they giving me that I'm not giving myself? And so I think when you get to this place where you can be really strong with yourself, where you don't really need anything from anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
then you actually have more to give. Because now you're not actually giving or taking, you're just being an experience where somebody else can be like, I want to be a little bit more like that. I don't want them to give it to me. I can just see that they are that way and I just want to be a little bit more. So it creates this self-sufficiency a little bit. I think for me, I notice people who are throwing too many compliments right off the start. Oh, you're great. You're fantastic. Oh, you're beautiful. Oh my God, you're such a great energy. It's like, whoa, that's a love bomb, right? That's
Okay.
too much, right?
Okay.
That's not,
Do they do that on purpose and do they know that they're doing that on purpose? Or is it just the personality type that that is just a trait and they might not even be aware of it?
it's hard to know whether they're consciously aware of it, but I think that they've realized that it's easy. It's an easy way to make connection, right?
Interesting. Because
Right.
I know someone right now who is just like that, constantly giving out the compliments. But the people that have been around them for a while, they don't get that treatment. They get harsh treatment. So very interesting. Okay, so if you deal with a person like that, how do you shield yourself?
I think again, it comes down to being aware of yourself. It's how much is what this person telling you, how good does it feel? Like, does it really put this smile on your face and you're like, yeah, I want more of this? That's an indication that you're not really giving it to yourself and that you're really needing some external validation of something. That's your weakness. And so this love bombing procedure is really trying to find where your weakness is because that's where it's taking its best effect. And so once they find their weakness, now they know how to move you around the board a little bit, right? So I think it's, again, I think through everything that I've gone through, where I'm at right now is that self is the most important relationship you're ever going to have. And
Yes.
so if you're in this place where the relationship with yourself isn't that strong, it's going to be very easy for other people to take that place. And so now you're reliant on this other relationship to give you what you need. And now you're not in control of yourself.
So, and I love how you said that you're not in control of yourself. How do you know? How can you pick up on the little feelings to know if you are out of control of yourself?
How badly do you need somebody else to tell you the things that they're telling
Okay. Okay.
you? Right.
That's a powerful one. Yeah.
You know,
So, how
why do you, why do you need your partner? Why do you need your partner? What are they giving you that you're not giving yourself?
Okay. So it's that infatuation almost. when you just need them around and I can't get enough of you because you feed that part of me that I can't feed myself. Okay, so it really is this codependence. All right. That's good to know because I know that there have been multiple times in my own life where I have felt that way for somebody, where it's like, oh gosh, I don't want to go to bed at night without this person in my head because this feels so good. But now I understand that that really is, an area for improvement, for self-improvement, where I need to feed myself more and nourish my own self in that way that person is doing that. That person is reminding me that that's an area of weakness for myself.
They're filling the void.
That's incredible. And if there is a void, they likely can see it very clearly, which is a gap. Someone without even telling you about these things can recognize a gap, kind of give you the little flag of, hey, this is what's going on, and suddenly you can start to grow yourself in those areas so that you're not going down a path that will destroy you and sabotage where you want to go. I think that's really, really important. I'm so glad we touched on that. So, you went from carpentry and architectural design into personal development. Tell me about how that happened.
So it was actually through a renovation project. I was kind of talking about quantum physics. So the double slit experiment is kind of a famous experiment that they talk about, and it really kind of blew my mind to realize that that's the moment where they could watch things move from energy to physical matter, and realizing that the only difference between the two is the observation of it is what collapses this energetic wave into a physical experience. So again, really what you think is literally creating the world around you. How you observe the observation, which is the idea or the thought, is the thing that is creating the physical reality around you. So that really started to put some of the things that Tony Robbins was talking about, visualization, incantations, all of these things, how important they are. And I know a lot of people talk about like, oh, visualization, yada, yada, yada. I hear it all the time, but it's literally the thing that creates the physical reality around you. What you think is creating what you're experiencing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Scientifically proven through experiment, right? That this is how this is happening. So that was really interesting for me. And so I was talking to a renovation client about this, and she's like, Eric, you should really take this class I took. And I said, well, can you explain it to me? And she's like, no, I can't. She's like, it's hard to explain. And I think she was going through some health issues as well that were a little bit scary. So I think she was there for the healing and not necessarily to really try to figure some things out, which is great. So I really went into it blind. I didn't do a lot of research. I just thought, this is kind of falling in my lap and we'll see what happens. And the first thing our teacher started talking about was quantum physics. Yeah, that was the love bomb, I think, for the experience in that. And I spent 3.5 years on the edge of my seat getting the answer to every question about life that I had ever had.
Wow. Just by studying quantum physics?
No, so this was going through some of the shamanic training that I went through. So the
Okay.
quantum physics was a little bit more socially accepted idea. I wasn't really talking about spirituality. It was just a scientific experiment. And so then getting into shamanism, where we're merging now this spiritual side with quantum physics a little bit, was this bridge between the two, this class. And so it really started to pull from a few different areas and really start to condense things into one idea that really made it, for me, easier to understand a lot of different concepts all in one. So it really started to answer a lot of the questions that I had. It also produced a lot more questions, which is great, and it still is for sure. I can feel myself moving down this road of trying to boil down what the essence of this experience is. And I think going through post-COVID, I've realized that self is everything. If you're observing something, what you're really observing is yourself. And what you think and what you know about yourself is the is the physical experience that you're having. So,
Sorry, when you say you look out into your reality and you're seeing yourself, what does that mean?
I like to say to people, the relationships you have with other people are a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. So if your marriage with your partner is a toxic relationship, I can guarantee that the relationship you have with yourself is toxic. If you're in this place where you really love and respect your partner, I guarantee that you love and respect yourself. Guarantee it. Because everything in this physical experience, from what I kind of understand, is a reflection of the relationship with yourself. So you're literally out here moving around in this experience, experiencing the relationship with yourself physically. If you don't love yourself, that's going to show up in how you work, what you do every day, your relationships with your kids, with your coworkers, with your mom, with your dad. There's just no other way. Right? So for me, that's what I've come to understand. And for me, I think what I've done recently is I replaced the word spirit or God with self. Because if we are, is that if everything is one, you are God.
Yeah.
I've had a few experiences kind of realizing that not only can I sit under the sun, but I can be the sun looking back at me. And so, I am the thing that's giving myself everything that I'm experiencing.
I'm pretty sure that you've been asked this question before. There are probably a lot of people who are like, wait, what did you just say? You're basically saying you're God. How do you get around that conversation?
And I don't mean it like I am and you're not. I mean it like you are, I am, we all are. Right? So this
Yeah. We're
relationship with
all part
self,
of the same energy that creates.
it's all just one thing. So again, we're two things. We're a bag of meat and a piece of light,
Yep. Okay.
right?
I like that. Yeah.
And so we're all from the same light. I kind of visualize it as like a sun in the middle of everything. And this sun
Mm-hmm.
is literally the light that we all possess. And so we're just having an experience of ourself here, but self is God. The relationship you have with yourself literally changes the physical experience. If you hate yourself, I can guarantee you some things that are happening for you in your life. And I guarantee you that if you come to this place where you reconcile this relationship with yourself and you get on side with yourself and you don't allow negative self-talk to ever happen again, and you say to yourself, I don't speak to myself like that ever again. I only thank myself. I only realize that I'm doing the best I ever can. Your life will change. I guarantee it. I don't mean that from I guarantee my healing. I mean, if you change the relationship with yourself, physical reality will automatically change. Your relationships will get better. You'll start getting better opportunities. Your job will start changing. Your health will get better because of how you know and understand yourself. And then you'll start to experience that physically. So I think a lot of people are kind of doing it backwards. They're asking other people for confirmation of who they are in order to believe who they are. And what you need to do is believe what you are in order to then create the experience of that. And so a lot of people are doing it backwards. The internal creates the external. And a lot of people are looking to the external to believe what's happening internally.
Sorry, I understand why most people do that. It's because when we're growing up, we depend on our parents to tell us, you're doing great. This is what you should do. And then our teachers, you're doing great. This is what you should do. Or this isn't great. This is bad. So we learn as a child to depend upon what other people say to know if we are in or out of the lane that we're supposed to be in.
Mhm.
But what we don't seem to understand and what we're not taught is, hey, when you become an adult, this is actually your arena. And it's important for you to be able to discern between if you are on track or not. And I wish that schools would teach this and that we weren't going through our lives and then shit, I don't know what I like. I don't know who I am. I don't know who I'm supposed to be. I was told all this time that this is what I should do and this is who I should be. And now that's all false, right? And now I feel completely effed up.
Mm-hmm. And you spend all this time doing what everybody else thinks you should be doing, right? It's like, I need to get a job title that everybody respects so that I'm respected. Instead of going, I'd rather have a terrible job title, but I have this great lifestyle, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to be respected out here, but then you really hate what you're doing all day long, right? So yeah, I think you're
And that's
right.
why you see addictions. That's why you see so many addictions in corporate culture, because people were told you need to be successful, you need to have six-figure income, you need to be able to do all of these different things. And then you find that these people are terribly unhappy because they haven't been able to ever accept themselves. They've just been trying to people please this entire time. So, I would love to understand from you, how does addiction play into this?
I think it starts to give you some of the feeling good experiences that you're missing. I think a lot of the things we're told and feel like societal puts a pressure on us to do actually causes us to abandon ourselves further, right? It's like, well, I really want to just like play music all day. And it's like, but you better go get a good job. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to abandon my passion to go do this thing that my mom thinks is really good because I'm trying to still get appreciation and love from her. Well, now my mom loves me, but I hate myself, right? And
Yeah.
so there's this abandonment of self through trying to make everybody else happy. Just try to get this love and appreciation from other people because we aren't in this place of being able to really just give it to ourselves. And so we're still looking for this external validation, which then furthers our abandonment of self, which causes us to walk further off center. And so now we're just trying to get a moment of happiness by doing some drugs or whatever it is to feel that feeling that you get when you're really just kind of in line with center, happy with yourself, and you can give yourself some love because you're doing what feels best for you, right? And so I think we're all chasing that feeling that we're really just searching for self-love. But I think to kind of go deeper, I think we've kind of been living in this fear-based reality for a while. I think we're kind of in this time of the Great Awakening. And I think for me, what that is waking up to how trauma causes us to react, which allows us to be manipulated easier. So now we're doing all of these things that we feel out of fear instead of doing things out of love or peace or joy, right? Again, where it's like, I'm scared that I'm not going to make enough money for retirement. So I've got to go do all of this stuff and abandon everything that I really want to do. And again, that's the
Yeah.
hijacking of ourself, using fear to put us in this traumatized place, which causes us to react. And we're just very, it's easy to be to be offered an idea, right? Can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but it's easy to suggest things to us when you're in a traumatized state. So I think that's a mechanism that's been put in our society to really move us around into doing things, right? Again, news is usually all fear-based stories. And it's just like we're
Yeah.
constantly being pumped with like, you got to do this, you got to do that, scared, scared, scared. And that just kind of puts us in this place where it's easy for us to be told what to do. So I think,
And it's
again,
hijacking your body. Watching the news is really negative and toxic and harmful, right? All the time. Your cortisol levels are spiked, right? And you're constantly looking for, okay, I just need something to feel better. I just need something to feel better. And so addiction, I think, plays into that for sure. And I think a lot of us are professionally addicted to getting out of real life and
mhm,
trying to numb what's really going on around us versus saying, okay, hold on. I haven't felt really good in a really long time without alcohol, drugs. Some people use other people,
mhm,
or even just drowning my sorrows in focus and like on whatever that looks like, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's my full-time job. We just run away from the panic and the feeling that we're not enough and the feeling that something bad is going to happen. And it can sometimes feel like that's just normal. but it's
It's not.
not, right? It's horrible.
It's control. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's manipulation. It's like we were talking about about relationships. Now you're being shamed and blamed into doing things that you don't necessarily want to do, but you feel like you have to. Yeah. It's a scary thing to kind of wake up to when you realize, where you're at. And I think that that's when you talked about midlife crisis, I think that that's what it is. It's like all of a sudden you're having the wake up call, like, I'm not happy. What's going on here? Like, I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to, and I'm still not feeling the things that I'm supposed to be feeling. And, people start to ask why. And then they start to look in. Instead of looking exteriorly for all of these things, trying to accomplish, create, get, have, right? They kind of just blow their life up, leave all that behind, and spend this moment kind of turning inwards and looking in and start asking themselves the question, what do I want? Right. And I think that that's, when we talk about spiritual healing, that's when people ask me what spiritual healing is, what I understand it to be is a direction. It's the turning inward.
Okay.
So I remember even in our class, one of the first ceremonies we learned is called the awakening. And it literally felt like I stopped. I did a 180-degree turn and I started walking the other way. And it was like 50% of my problems just vanished. I was like, what is this?
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, this is the walking back towards the center. This is me going to look for myself back inwards where it exists instead of trying to do all of these things exteriorly to make my mom happy, my dad happy, my teacher happy, my friends happy. Now I'm just doing what I think I need, right? And all of a sudden things start to feel a lot more rewarding. So I think that's kind of the experience of the midlife crisis. Yeah.
Right? When it
Yeah.
all is going wrong, that is not, necessarily like the time to start doing more. That is a time to take a pause and step back and really do a self-check, right? From what I'm understanding. So help me understand when it comes to shamanic healing and what your practice is and energy healing and energy medicine. How, like, where is it that you start with individuals when they come to you and they say, like, I can't seem to get it right. I feel like everything is busted and I'm doing all the right things. So like, where do we begin? How can I detox all of this shit so that I can feel good finally and get in the right direction?
So a lot of it is just, it seems really simple. Like even today, this is going to be an interesting story. So I needed to get some truck repair done. So I was doing some truck repair and the guy's asking me, he's like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I do a few things. I do some construction, I do some bartending, and I'm also in alternative healing. And he's like, oh, well, that's quite the resume. He's like, how do you heal high blood pressure? And I just said to him, I'm like, how much pressure do you put on yourself? And he was just like, oh. And he just stopped and he's like, an immense amount. And so if you get people to explain the experience that they want to change, it's like, well, what does it feel like? What does your illness feel like? Right? And it's, it's a sharp pain. Well, then we just go in, well, how does that reflect the experience with yourself? How sharp are you with yourself? Oh yeah, I don't let myself get away with anything. I'm constantly on myself. Like I am cutting myself up constantly. Okay, that's where we start. Why are you like that? Where did you learn how to do that? Why do you think that that's acceptable? How does that experience serve you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Again, this physical experience of, I think in healing, changing, people are like, well, what can you heal? Well, we can heal everything because it's all being created from this internal experience. So then it's just what it feels like is just a representation of what the relationship is. So then we need to dive into where does that come from? Why do you think it's appropriate? How does it serve you? And what do you want instead? And it's this real simple concept that's not magic that anybody can do. It's just this reflection of self, right? So I mean, that's usually where we start. It's just like, well, what does your issue feel like? Oh, it feels like this heavy mass. It's like, well, how much are you carrying? I'm carrying everything emotionally. I haven't let anything emotionally go. Well, why don't we start there? So when we dive into the emotional body, see what environment it looks like, let's clean it up a little bit, try to make some room, let's do some resolution from the past and things like that. So when we get into actually doing a session, um, just me closing my eyes and just asking, what does a visual representation of this issue look like? It usually just kind of appears as an image. And then we just start to pull in some of our medicines. So there's frequencies, there's energies, there's elements from Mother Earth, there's places we can go, there's retrieving power. And to me, sounds like real kitschy words and phrases,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but it's amazing how much some of these things, when you do it right, changes somebody's life dramatically. So it's all real
Absolutely.
simple stuff. It's just getting to this place of believing that it's there and that it's possible is the hardest thing for people because we're so physical reality tuned, right? It's like, well, you didn't give me anything. You're not even in the room. Like, you're going to do this over the phone? How does that work? And I'm like, well, this is the quantum experience. Everything's connected. Everything is one. Everything is all here. You just have to have this idea of knowing that you can connect to it and bring in all of these other things in order to watch it change. And so that's why quantum physics was so interesting for me, realizing there's this quantum soup that's out there and everything's connected and everything's here right now. You just have to allow yourself to experience it, right? And it's like, well, how do we do that? So now having some of these energy medicine tools gives a person the ability to kind of see how to make those things possible. Right. Again,
Absolutely. I have feelings towards Western medicine, and I know that Western medicine treats the physical, and there are a lot of issues there. There are a lot of things that go misdiagnosed. There are things that obviously just fall under the radar. Too much time passes, things go wrong. Like, it's just, I haven't had success, I don't know in how many years with the doctor. Like, literally, I went to doctors for so many different things. They couldn't figure it out. They just gave me something that was their best guess, and it didn't work. So, I know that this is very common for most people. And so when you're talking about quantum physics, how we are energy and how we can fix our energy based on searching outside of physical, because it's not a physical thing, it's an energetic thing, how things change and how there is a fix just by thinking about things a little differently. I think that's spot on. And I think that more and more and more people are now switching from looking at Western medicine as the be all end all and saying, okay, well, hold on. What about Eastern medicine? What about, acupuncture? What about hypnosis? What about shamanic practices? Because there is something to those ancient medicines that were looking at things very differently and made a bigger impact than putting something else into your body, which causes other issues.
Western medicine is very
Yeah.
limiting. And it actually,
Mhm.
in my experience, it's actually squashing a lot of other ideas in order to be the thing. I know some nurses, when I talk to nurses about it, it's always kind of funny. They're like, oh, that's quackery. And so they've literally been taught a term in order to,
Brainwashed. Yeah.
like what you're saying is quackery, Eric. I'm like, well, if you're all using this word, you all must have learned it somewhere. It's textbook, right? So they're literally putting down anything else that's possible in order to be the one and only thing to take over. So it's interesting to re-educate people on what's possible, right? And a lot of people just,
Yes.
it's miracle work and all these things. No, it's not. It's a very simple mechanism when you come to understand what the mechanism is. I think, again,
Yes.
spirituality, the word spirituality creates a division for people. There's a few things you don't talk about, religion, politics, and sex, and spirituality comes into that, where people just, oh, I don't want to believe what you believe, right? So I think when people ask me what spirituality is, I usually ask them, well, what is your faith? And it's like, well, I'm Christian. I'm like, so for you, where is God? Like, if you were to point to God, where would it be? And they're like, well, he's kind of up there in the sky, right? And there's always this feeling of like, it's separate. God is out there and it's not me. And when I talk about spirituality, spirituality is moving inwards. Where's your spirit? What's here? So again, it's this direction of moving inward. So again, for me, God is spirit. God is self. It's the thing in the center. It's this direction inwards. So yeah, Western medicine and religion and all of these things kind of are almost designed to hijack this experience. I think even Joe Dispenza calls it technology that we have within ourselves. It's like, oh, this is how physical reality is created. I know I've watched some interesting YouTube videos about how DNA causes electrons to gather in certain ways. So it's like our DNA is organizing electrons, which is the things that physical matter is made out of, right? So it's like, if we can understand that this mechanism is internal and how this mechanism is running is literally the thing that causes this physical reality to be created, you're in this place of being in the magic. So again, I think Christianity is kind of that hijacking of self and putting, God in between you and yourself. Western medicine, again, has kind of hijacked this, saying there's nothing here. That's quackery, that's nonsense. Like, everything has to be physical, right? So it's a lot of re-educating people back to the things that we used to do. Right? Again, it's ancient medicine for a reason, and all of these other things have kind of hijacked that and squashed it, and now we're just trying to like get it back a little bit. Sort of been the experience today.
I really, really appreciated our time together. Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you.
And you can find out more and get in touch with Eric by visiting calmwaterwellnessstudio.com. And I will have links to his Instagram and Facebook just in the description below. But thank you so much, and we will talk soon.